A powerful storm system is set to impact the United States over the next few days, and this will bring a multi-day severe weather outbreak. This includes the threat of significant damaging winds, very large hail, and the potential for strong and long-track tornadoes. So in today's forecast, we are going to break down exactly what you need to know about the weather that'll be impacting the United States over the next 7 days. We'll begin with what's happening across the country this afternoon, and we do have a large low-pressure system that is now spinning back over in Utah and Nevada, and this is actually what's going to bring our threat of significant severe weather, which actually begins this evening and will run all the way through Tuesday, and then we'll have another storm system late Tuesday into Wednesday that'll bring even more severe weather from the southern plains all the way back through the Ohio Valley. There's going to be a lot of people impacted by the threat of severe weather here between now all the way through Thursday of this week, and this will be one of the more active stretches of severe weather that we have seen so far in 2025. So make sure that you are staying weather aware, and in this video we're going to break down everything that you need to know about every single day between now all the way through the end of this week. Now let's talk more about the severe weather potential for the next few days, and we'll begin with today, which we do have a large slight risk of severe weather stretching from North Dakota all the way back into Texas. At the time you're watching this forecast, there will be a potential for storms initiating over the next few hours. Main concern for today will be large to very large hail stretching from Nebraska back into West Texas. There's also a potential for a few tornadoes. This is a highly conditional threat, though, of severe weather. It's going to depend on if supercells fire off, which right now I'd say the chances of that are around 30 to 40%. But if we even get one or two storms that fire in this environment, I would not rule out a potentially intense or even violent tornado. The environment is extremely favorable for tornadoes. It's just going to be a matter of if storms actually fire off, which with the timing of this low pressure system and how far back off to the west it is, I feel like the chances of storms firing off are on the low side of things. We will probably see at least a few storms back over in parts of Nebraska and South Dakota later this evening, and those will produce the threat for some large hail and an isolated tornado or two, but anything further down to the south is a lot more conditional. Definitely a day that you want to be staying weather aware, though, and have multiple ways to receive alerts. Now, as we go into Monday, this is expected to be a significant day of severe weather. We have a large area that we are watching for the risk of severe storms, stretching from the Great Lakes all the way back down into the southern plains, with our main concern being back over in Minnesota, Wisconsin, and Iowa, where the Storm Prediction Center has a level 4 out of 5 moderate risk of severe weather. One of the biggest changes to the forecast that we've seen here just over the last 12 hours or so is that they have removed the moderate risk, at least for parts of central Iowa. So they've condensed this moderate risk a little bit. It's not nearly as large as before, but it does include areas like the Twin Cities, back over near Wausau as well in Wisconsin. That's kind of the general area where the most significant threat of severe weather will lie. Now, even though parts of central Iowa are not in the moderate risk anymore, that does not mean you should not be weather aware, because we still have an elevated 3 out of 5 enhanced risk of severe weather that's in place pretty much for the entire state of Iowa, where significant damaging winds, very large hail, and potentially strong or even long-track tornadoes are possible. But this will all depend on if discrete supercells fire off during the afternoon, which right now I'm leaning towards about a 65-70% chance that we will at least have 1 or 2 discrete supercells fire off in this environment, which any supercell that fires in this environment will be capable of strong and long-track tornadoes. It's extremely favorable for tornadoes, especially in the month of April. We don't usually see severe weather threats this far off to the north. The one thing that could hurt the severe weather setup as well is that the mid-level moisture is going to be lacking a little bit. So if there's not enough moisture in the mid-levels, we actually might not see that many storms fire off to begin with in this area. But if it's high enough, which it could be on the day of, again, this can be more of a nowcasting event, I think, tomorrow, then there will almost undoubtedly be at least a few discrete supercells in this region, especially with how strong our area of convergence is going to be, and as well as our dry line setup. Further down to the south and west, we are anticipating at least scattered severe weather to fire off, mainly during the evening hours, stretching from areas like northern Missouri all the way back down into Oklahoma, Kansas, and as well as Texas. So the main concerns for tomorrow will be damaging winds, especially since we are going to see a line of storms fire up back over in Minnesota, and that'll eventually move into Wisconsin and the upper peninsula of Michigan as we go throughout the afternoon and evening hours. Large to very large hail is also a big concern. We could see hailstones as large as the size of softballs, so it is a good idea to protect your vehicle everywhere for those in the Midwest and also back through Oklahoma and Texas. The tornado threat is the most elevated back over in Wisconsin, Minnesota, Iowa, and even northern Illinois, where strong and long-track tornadoes are possible. Again, it's not a guarantee that we are going to see this, but if a storm fires, it is going to most likely be a very long afternoon and evening. And then our 5% tornado risk goes all the way back through Oklahoma, where there is a potential for a few tornadoes, and the main concern in those areas will be mostly during the evening and perhaps even into the early overnight hours. Now, as we go into Tuesday, we do have another upgrade. An enhanced risk of severe weather has now been issued back over New York, Pennsylvania, and Ohio, where significant damaging winds, some large hail, and a few tornadoes are possible across this region. We are going to continue to have a strong low-level jet, which should increase our tornado risk in addition to our wind threat. So definitely another day that you want to be staying weather aware back over in the Northeast through the Ohio Valley during the afternoon hours. We are likely going to be live both Monday and Tuesday, so make sure you are subscribed to the channel and click the bell icon so you're notified with the latest updates. We also have a slight risk of severe weather that goes all the way back through the southern plains and into the Tennessee Valley. Main concern over in the southern plains will be large to very large hail, some damaging winds, and also a potential for a few tornadoes. I mentioned this in our video this morning, but I also think an enhanced risk of severe weather may be issued back over in Texas and Oklahoma if the confidence of storms does grow here in the intensity, which I do think we are at least going to see a couple of storms produce some pretty big hail. Back over in the Northeast, the damaging wind threat is going to be our biggest concern. Once again, damaging winds as high as 70 to 80 miles per hour is going to be a possibility, so make sure that you are protecting loose line items, and if you have any sort of furniture that's outdoors that could go flying, make sure that you are protecting that as well. And then by Wednesday, our risk of severe weather will be mainly back over in the southern plains. Another low pressure system will move across the southern plains, bring the risk of some severe weather back over in Texas, Oklahoma, Arkansas, and Louisiana, where damaging winds, hail, and a few tornadoes will be a possibility. We will talk more about what's upcoming Wednesday and Thursday in a future video after our Monday threat of severe weather, so make sure you are subscribed to the channel. So our tornado risk over the next few days will be very elevated. This is what it looks like this afternoon and evening. We pretty much have maxed out values across Kansas, Oklahoma, and Texas. It's really going to be a matter of if storms do initiate today. By tomorrow, our tornado risk will be much more elevated back over in the Midwest. During the afternoon and evening, we are going to have a very strong low-level jet out of the southwest, which will increase the amount of wind shear that we have across much of the Midwest, which in all essence, this will increase our tornado risk across this entire region with any supercells that do fire off. And then into the evening hours, we still have a very favorable environment for tornadoes, even back over in Oklahoma and Kansas, where our significant tornado parameter values range from 5 to 10. And by the way, we really only need values around 1 to 2 for tornadoes to even happen. Once we get above 5, that's usually an indicator that we could see some significant tornadoes. So that's something to keep an eye on. But again, further down to the south, it's a lot more of a conditional risk of storms actually firing off, as our low pressure system is well off to the north. So our initiation in this area is definitely a lot more uncertain at this time. And then eventually, as we go into Thursday, our threat of tornadoes will continue anywhere from Texas all the way back over into the Northeast. The environment will not be nearly as favorable for tornadoes, but we definitely still have enough wind shear, especially in the Ohio Valley and Northeast, where there will be a potential for a few tornadoes. Now let's talk more about the timing for severe weather, and we're going to begin with tomorrow, which overall during the morning we should have at least some scattered showers and thunderstorms out there. Severe weather is unlikely with most of this activity, but if we do have any severe weather, large hail would be our main concern during the morning hours. Just after lunchtime, a line of storms will begin to fire up back over in Minnesota, where significant damaging winds and a couple of tornadoes are going to be a possibility out of this line of thunderstorms. Additionally, large hail is a more elevated potential within the first hour or two of those storms firing off. By around 3 to 4 o'clock, storms continue to fire off across parts of Minnesota, and even by 5, we are still dealing with our most active environment being across Minnesota, where numerous damaging winds, hail, and a couple of tornadoes will remain possible. Now, by about 6 o'clock, the HRW model is indicating that there will be some storm initiation across parts of Iowa and southeastern Minnesota. And keep in mind, this is where our environment is the most favorable for strong and long track tornadoes. I would still say right now our chances of storms firing up in this region are about a 70% chance, meaning that we could see 1, 2, 3, maybe 4 discrete supercells, and any ones that do fire off will have the capability of producing strong and potentially long track tornadoes, especially with how much wind shear and low level moisture that's going to be in place for tomorrow. Eventually, by around 7 to 8 o'clock, these supercells are going to be moving into areas like Wisconsin, assuming that these do fire off, just outside of Chicago as well, all the way back over into southeastern Minnesota. Line of thunderstorms will continue back over in Minnesota, where damaging winds will be the primary concern. Tornado risk is possible as well, in addition to some large hail. By around 9 to 10 o'clock, these supercells are going to be moving through Wisconsin, and we will likely at least have one storm that'll be going towards the Great Lakes. And once these storms get to the lake region here, I do think that they will begin to weaken out. So right around 10 to 11 o'clock, these storms do continue, and then eventually by around midnight and 1 in the morning, the storms are going to start to weaken as they move across the Great Lakes. And then by Tuesday morning, the severe weather threat will be much lower across the Midwest. So once again, on Monday, you should be weather aware. I know there's still a chance that storms do not fire off, and yes, there's a chance that this busts, which hopefully it does. But again, we are at least expecting at the minimum a line of thunderstorms to fire up in Minnesota, and then this is a slightly more conditional risk, but I personally still think we are going to at least see 1 or 2 storms try to fire off here, and any ones that do could really create a very long and potent day here of severe weather across the Midwest. Storm initiation should be sometime around 3 to 6 o'clock. That's when I think storms will fire up, and this should continue all the way into the early to mid-evening hours across the Midwest. Again, we will be live tomorrow covering this, so make sure you are subscribed to the channel. Back over in the Central Plains, there is a chance again of some storms this afternoon. Once again, I think the best chance will be back up in Nebraska and South Dakota, where large hail and a tornado risk will exist. Might see a storm or two try to fire off here across the Central Plains, but generally speaking, I think the threat is low enough to the point where we will probably not be live this evening. Just make sure you're subscribed to the channel in case we do go live. Eventually, as we go into Monday, our threat of severe weather will increase during the afternoon and evening hours back over in Nebraska and South Dakota. And then eventually, as we get closer to around 10 to 11 o'clock, our moisture should increase back over in areas like the southern and central plains, and we should see at least some storms initiate. Whether those happen in Oklahoma or back over in Kansas is a little bit uncertain, but I do think we're at least going to have some storms initiate. And the main concern out of these will be large hail, but we could also see an isolated tornado or two come out of that activity. And then as we go into Tuesday morning, those storms will quickly move off to the east. But I do think we'll at least see some isolated to scattered storms here in our southern mode of severe weather for Monday, so make sure that you are staying weather aware. And then heading into Tuesday, we are anticipating at least scattered severe weather across the Northeast. Damaging winds will definitely be the primary concern. This is what it looks like right around 3 to 4 o'clock. We got a bunch of thunderstorms out there producing damaging winds, some hail, and also a potential for a few tornadoes stretching from New York and Vermont back into Ohio and West Virginia. And then eventually by the evening hours, this line of storms will continue to move across Pennsylvania and New York. And I do anticipate that this will weaken by around 8 to 9 o'clock as it approaches New Jersey, Maryland, and Delaware, but there should at least be some isolated to widely scattered severe weather remaining for those areas. Back over in the Ohio Valley, we are anticipating at least some scattered severe weather in this area as well. Right around lunchtime on Tuesday, storms will be moving right across Illinois and Indiana, with damaging winds being the main concern. More storms will fire off during the afternoon, continuing the risk of severe storms. Back over in Missouri, Kansas, and Oklahoma, our severe weather risk will ramp up here with damaging winds, hail, and again, a couple tornadoes all being a possibility. Eventually, by around 5 to 6 o'clock, these storms are going to continue. I do think that there's a chance, if this actually pans out, we could see a much more elevated risk of severe weather put in place in Missouri, Kansas, and as well as Oklahoma, but I generally think that this will be mainly a large hail and damaging wind risk. The tornado risk will definitely exist, with the low-level shear increasing from our other low-pressure system that'll move across the southern plains Tuesday into Wednesday, but overall, I think this will be more of a hail and wind threat back over in the central and southern plains, and this threat will continue into the evening hours for those in the lower Midwest and just off to the west there of the Mississippi River Valley. And then for those in the southern plains, today and tomorrow look somewhat quiet. We might see a couple storms fire off as we go into late Monday and into early Tuesday back over in central Texas, but I think our best chance of severe weather will be Tuesday afternoon and evening, where we will be dealing with at least some big hailstorms and maybe even a few tornadoes back over in central Texas, as a new low pressure system will be moving in, and that should actually increase our wind shear, especially for the storms that do fire off back over in central Texas. So make sure that you're staying weather aware. These will eventually move in the direction of the Dallas-Fort Worth area and Oklahoma City. By the time they get there, it'll be mainly a hail and wind risk, I think, for Tuesday. And then as we head into the middle and end of this week, we will continue to have some very active weather across the country. Severe weather is going to continue throughout the day on Wednesday and Thursday across the southern plains. By Thursday, the severe weather risk will move off to the east, as a low pressure system will continue to bring a risk for at least some scattered severe storms for areas like the Mississippi River Valley and also back into the Ohio Valley. For now, the Storm Prediction Center has at least hesitated on increasing any risk of severe weather for Thursday, but I could see there being at least a slight risk of severe weather somewhere back over in the Tennessee Valley on Thursday. And then by Friday and Saturday, I think things will start to clear out, which is good news. I think we're at least going to have a quieter weekend coming up. And then by next week, which is far out from now, I do think we're going to see the return of at least some severe weather in the Great Plains Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday. But again, it's a little too early to tell what's going to be happening then. Let's focus on what's happening at least over the next 5 days or so, and then we'll talk more about what's upcoming as we go into next week. And as always, thank you all so much for watching today's forecast. If you are new to the channel, make sure to subscribe down below and click the bell icon so you're notified with the latest updates. We will have another video tomorrow morning, and then we should be live on Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday. So stay tuned, and we'll see you guys all again in the next video.